This is Alison from LorelaiJane.com and you're watching the Tech Pouch sewing tutorial. We're going to start off with our closure tab, and what you need to know about this pattern is if you're choosing fabric that is one-way directional, you really need to think about the fabric placement of the closure. And you'll see here I'm really looking and trying out different ways to do this closure tab so that the fabric makes the most sense. So you really want the fabric to be right side up when it's closed, not so much when it's open. Or you may want it on one way on the inside of the closure tab, say. You may want that one way. You may want that exterior to be right side up. So it's something to think about if you choose directional fabric like I have. And so this is just me double checking that I'm doing it how it needs to be done. And then you just want to sew around it, leaving one side open, and that side will be the part that gets sewn in. So you're going to sew around this with a 1/4 inch seam and then clip the corners and turn right side out. After you've turned it right side out, you want to poke out those corners. I use either a chopstick or the handle of a paintbrush or a pencil, just to get those corners really pushed out and looking crisp. And then you will probably press it and make sure those seams are also crisp. And you want to top stitch around with a 1/8 seam allowance or a top stitch, however close you like it. You may choose to even do a decorative stitch. Yeah, so with this pouch it actually comes in 5 sizes, so I've done the iPad size today. So the next step is you want to take your 2 pocket pieces and place them right sides together. And you're just going to stitch along the top with the 1/4 inch seam allowance. You want to make sure these pieces are lined up pretty well. Open these pocket pieces right side out and press with wrong sides together, and you want to top stitch along the top to create that nice pocket. You want to place this pocket piece on one of the exterior pieces. I've already attached the interfacing as the pattern says, so we've got interfacing on the pocket pieces and we've got interfacing on fusible fleece on the exterior of the of the pouch pieces. So we're just lining up that pocket piece on to the bottom of one of those exterior pieces and stitching a base stitch around it. Now you've got one of your pouch pieces and done, and you just want to do the other exterior piece, and you want to find the center top of that exterior piece as well as the center top of your closure tab, and lining those 2 up. And I just use clips to hold them while I sew a basting stitch. So now you can test out how your closure tab will look when your pouch is closed. and you can see it will be right side up. And now you've got your second piece for the pouch. So you want to place your two exterior pieces right sides together and make sure they line up and clip them all together, and then stitch around with a 1/4 inch seam, just leaving the top open so you can turn it right side out. Once you've finished stitching around these exterior pieces, you want to clip the curved edges, being careful not to cut into the stitches. Sorry about the angle of this video, but yeah, you just need to clip those curves so that when you turn these pieces right side out, it sits nicely. And you want to make sure the pocket piece is on the opposite side of that closure, and you'll see how when I was turning it out, it was on the wrong side, so I just flipped it over to the other side. So then you can test the placement of everything, make sure the basting worked. So now that we're onto the lining pieces, you want to put these right sides together, and you want to ensure that these are lined up really well and clip them. And you also want to leave a turning hole in the bottom of this piece. That's so we can turn the pouch right side out, and this is really important that it's pretty centered, especially in the smaller pouches. So this pouch pattern comes in 5 sizes, and I'm doing the iPad size, so it's quite large, but there is a phone size, and you want to make sure that when you're sewing that phone size, it is definitely centered, so that is the easiest to turn, and also top stitch that closed afterwards. So, and then you stitched it around the lining pieces with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now that your lining is stitched, you want to put your exterior pieces that are right side out, you want to put those into the lining pieces that are wrong side out, so they'll be right sides together. And you want to match up those seams, and you want to nest them so that one side of the seam allowance, or say the exterior seam allowance, will be tucked in one way, and the lining will be tucked in the other way, and they'll be nested together. Hopefully I'm showing that a little bit well. And then you want to line up those edges and then stitch around the whole pouch top with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. The lining fabric that I use in this pouch, as well as a lot of my other pouches, is actually natural seeded cotton, quilting cotton, and the reason I do that is I buy in bulk, and it can save a lot of time and money, choice paralysis as well. Choosing a natural coloured fabric sort of goes with most things, so I don't have to buy a lot of different coloured fabrics to use in my linings. So we're just going to stitch around the top of this tech pouch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You want to pull your tech pouch through that hole that you left in the lining and poke out all the curves and the lining edges so that it sits really flat. You want to close that turning hole with a top stitch so that it won't get things falling through the lining, and you want to put the lining back into the tech pouch so that it sits really flat. Just take your time here, getting rid of all the little threads, and also just tightening up that lining so that it looks really neat, and also press it so that it's sitting inside the pouch. You want to top stitch with an edge stitch or 1/8 stitch along the top edge of the pouch, just so the lining stays inside the pouch and it just gives it a more professional look. Trim off all of those extra threads, and now we're going to look at doing a closure. So with this pouch, I really love using Velcro. Velcro can be a little bit tricky to sew with a domestic machine, but if you take your time and sew slowly, you'll be able to get it. I've included instructions on how much Velcro to cut, but you can do more or less than what I've said for each pattern piece, each pattern size. You want to make sure these are lined up on the pocket piece and the tab closure really well before you start sewing. And when sewing, you want to ensure that you're back stitching in every corner, especially if you're making this for a child and it will get lots of views. You want to make sure that that Velcro is not going anywhere. And Velcro sort of has this flat edge where the Velcro bits aren't on if you get the sew-in Velcro, so you want to try to stay stitching on that little flat bit because it will go better in your machine. And you want to trim all those threads so it looks nice on the exterior of your pouch as well as on the inside. And yeah, just take your time with this and make sure it's really lined up before you start stitching. You want to make sure that it is as square as you can get it, and so it will look the best when it's closed. I always put a finger between the closure and the top, and this just means that if I put anything in my pouch, the closure won't squish the top of the pouch. You'll see in a minute when I close the closure that there's a little tiny bit of space in between the top of the pouch and the closure. So that's my tech pouch finished. Yeah, you can see there's a little bit of a gap. It doesn't squish it down. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed watching this tutorial and you make this pouch. Thanks.